When we talk about the mayor and their role, a lot of that job is managing people. So,
Yeah.
It's leading departments, it's making sure stuff shows up on time and garbage is picked up and all of that. And,
Yeah.
I think Duggan has been recognized for tapping his network that he's built
Yes.
throughout his long career
Yes.
before becoming mayor and bringing
Yep.
those people in. Our former budget
Mhm.
director was like the state treasurer,
Yep.
right? So who are you going to be bringing in for? Maybe you can talk about individuals, maybe not. Who are going to lead these departments, right? Or
Yeah.
do you have experienced, qualified heavy hitters ready to come
Yeah.
in? And are you worried about Duggan had been people leaving with this change in leadership, or do you hope that they'll stick around?
I hope that we need institutional knowledge. And I think there are some phenomenal directors that have been here for a very long time that I would hate to see leave. And so when the appropriate time presents itself, I will have those discussions with them about, possibly staying on board. But the beauty is that I'm very serious about recruiting talent in Detroit. And so whether that's locally or nationally, I pride myself on ensuring that we have the skills and the competency to move Detroit forward. And so Duggan did a great job at that. And I know that I'll do the same in ensuring that we're recruiting the best and the brightest that are also here in Detroit. But also if we need to look elsewhere to come and ensure that we have the most effective and efficient people, we will do so.
One of the bigger things that the council did, since I've been paying attention anyway, was the tax reforms that were passed, I think, 2 years ago. Obviously, overassessment is a major issue. People continue to voice concerns about not only being repaid for that $600 million that was taken from people, but making sure it doesn't happen again, and making sure things are fair now. Part of what you guys did was hire an independent auditor to take a look at how we're doing assessment in Detroit. And that report just came out. I read it. I'm still trying to understand it. But basically, it seemed like Detroit was following the law, which I think doesn't necessarily mean that people are happy or activists in this space. So I guess, first of all, explain to me the intent behind the changes that the council passed and what's been the impact of that so far.
So the intent, and that was an ordinance that I sponsor, and that's a part of the People's Bills. And it's a property tax assessment ordinance to bring transparency to how property taxes are assessed. There's a lot of people who feel that their property taxes may be overassessed. They don't know how the value is determined, for example. And so a part of that ordinance was to give them the transparency that they need and empower them with the information to understand their tax bill and how you can appeal your property taxes if you do so choose to do so. And so the independent evaluator came and they did an assessment of properties throughout Detroit. And now we'll take that assessment and we'll review it ourselves and have a conversation to determine if we in fact believe that the lower income homes in Detroit are still being overassessed. And so again, I think it's really equipping council with the information and knowledge to really have these serious conversations, because we've heard it for quite some time that the lowest value homes are still being overassessed. And we never want the situation to happen again. So it's just trying to figure out what those solutions are. Yes, the city may be abiding by state law, but does that mean it's right? Does state law need to change? Is there a different process that the assessor can undergo that will give a more accurate reflection of assessments in Detroit? I think those are conversations and discussions that we still need to have.
The Duggan administration, the law department, have been pretty firm on the idea that we can't pay people back for that $600 million.
Yeah.
I think you've disagreed with that, right? What would you try to re-examine that issue with your law department?
Yep. So what I would do, I do agree it will be very challenging to try to even get into a situation where we're paying residents back. That's up to the tune of $600 million. I believe that there's two routes. One, making changes in state law that would allow for a tax credit on residents' bills in the amount that they were overassessed, phasing it within 5 years. I think it's feasible, it can be done, and I think that's a fair way to compensate and make people whole for the harm that was caused. The second thing is really working with the Dignity Restoration Project, which is trying to garner philanthropic and private support to actually directly pay back individuals that were hardest hit. These are residents whose homes were overassessed. They should have never even paid property taxes because they qualified for a property tax exemption and their homes are taken from them. Those are the hardest hit population that we would like to be able to reimburse them directly through cash compensation. But again, it would be with the support of a private entity. So those would be the two ways that I would explore day one as mayor, is not, first of all, running away from it, because I think it still has to be addressed. But I think those are the most convenient and really feasible ways to be able to provide relief. I also have to mention, I created the Affected Homeowners Program, which gives preference to those who are overassessed in existing programs. So I've tried my hardest to acknowledge the harm, and whatever I can do legally at this point, we've tried to address.
Yeah, it's frustrating because some people lost their homes over just like $100.
Exactly.
Like very small
100
amounts of
that they really shouldn't have had to pay.
Right.
Some people they qualified for a poverty exemption.
Yeah.
So it's very disconcerting.